Terraria's Summoner class is a high-skill, rewarding playstyle that attracts people who want a challenge. You can't spawn in as a class in Terraria, and because of the non-linear nature of this class, most players won't consider committing to it. Regardless, Stage 1 begins just like any other class, with a copper shortsword. I don't want to use this shortsword again. I'm so done. I can't do this anymore. I can't. Feeling dissatisfied with melee, they search for an alternative upgrade, of which they find very quickly. The player loots a finch staff underneath a living tree and gets their hands on their very first summon. The finches, however, are pretty lackluster. With the low damage they deal, the summoner player will quickly learn that they won't be able to rely on them alone. It'll also highlight one of the summoner class's main weaknesses, minion AI. Minions don't always target the enemies you want, or aggro onto enemies fast enough to protect you as well as other classes can. Wow, this mace is amazing. Wow, this flare gun is amazing. Wow, this wand is amazing. Why is this taking so long? No. With a lack of whips in pre-hard mode, it's difficult to get a proper grasp on it as somebody new to the class. To avoid future nighttime bullying, the summoner player builds some houses which serve as a new home for the world's NPCs. One of these NPCs will be the zoologist. The zoologist is amazing for two reasons, but specifically for summoners, she sells the first whip they'll get their hands on. It isn't necessarily powerful, but this shows to the new summoner player that there is indeed hope for their class. Freedom granted by the whip makes them explore the underground at length, picking up accessories, life crystals, and drops from enemies. Unfortunately for the summoner player though, they'll in all likelihood not come back with a new weapon or an obvious way to get new armor. Regardless, this doesn't stop them from attempting the world's evil boss, and getting absolutely smoked. After that humbling experience, the summoner player returns to exploration. This leads them to the underground jungle, and following a perilous journey, they return to base and ask the guide what could be crafted. Here they realize there's actually another whip they could have been using this whole time, the Snapthorn, boasting 4 extra damage per hit, longer range, less penalty for hitting multiple enemies, an attack speed buff on hit, a poison debuff, higher knockback, and a high attack damage bonus. The Snapthorn completely changes how early summoner is played. This means the evil boss is no longer a threat, and at this point, the summoner player may feel a shift in the world's food chain. No more will they be stuck against walls in a cave while about 5 different enemies slowly come towards them.
Hey, kill that boy! Kill that boy! Kill that boy! Kill that boy!
Temporarily using armor crafted from the world's evil ore, they hunt down flinks in the underground tundra for their fur, so now they can craft the flink stuff. At this point, they're feeling pretty confident about summoner as a whole, and with movement accessories like Magiluminescence becoming available, dodging is easier than ever. They also see that obsidian armor is the best armor set they can get their hands on at this stage. However, after failing to stay alive in the underworld, they settle for trying out for bee armor instead. After taking down the queen bee with relative ease, the summoner player is fully geared up. Confidence starts to set in, as they no longer feel underpowered whatsoever with their stronger minions. Sure, they're still really squishy, but granted they dodge their enemies' attacks in time, the damage output from their minions should win them most fights. With their new gear, the summoner player prepares to fight the Wall of Flesh. But after playing it safe and relying on their minions a bit too much to deal all the damage, they realize just their minions alone can't carry them. With another quick weapon and armor upgrade, as well as staying closer to their enemy, once they take down the Hungry, the win is effectively theirs, making them ready to move on to hard mode. Being a summoner in early hard mode sucks. With enemies hitting harder than ever, as well as no clear path for gear upgrades, the summoner player mines hard mode ores and switches to a different class for the time being. While exploring with their new gear, they stumble into a spider nest and idly collect some of their fangs. Once they return home, they notice that strangely enough, there's a new set of armor they can craft with the fangs in question. They take a trip back to the nest and farm for a little, allowing the summoner player to craft a full set of spider armor. This armor is amazing, by the way. So amazing that the summoner player faces off against the 3 mechanical bosses and emerges victorious against all of them. The hulled bars dropped by the mech bosses allow the summoner player to quickly replace their spider gear with a fresh set of armor, as well as crafting the optic staff to summon a horde of twins. From this point onward, they'll thankfully be able to steamroll most enemies in their path. With the jungle growing restless and an hour of arena mining later, the summoner player is prepared to exterminate Plantera. The eyes make quick work of the overgrown weed, granting the player the pygmy staff, and another new armor set available to buy from the witch doctor. Having no reason to stall, they arrive and blitz through the lizard temple. This means fighting and beating Golem, and after a quick fight, they realize that his drops aren't really that beneficial to them. Seeing no clear upgrades for weapons or accessories, the summoner player returns to the dungeon to disrupt the local cult gathering. Sorry, do you know which way the beach is? My army of tiny men are trying to get wet and wild.
We're kinda busy right now. Sorry, dude.
What? I just wanted to know where.
Yeah, man, I get it, but we're kinda busy right now.
You're being so rude. Who raised you?
I'll call him right now. I'll call my dad over right now.
Go for it, see if I care. With the lunatic cultist defeated, the summoner player challenges the Stardust Pillar, and after a very tedious battle, the pillar is destroyed. With those fragments, the summoner crafts their final minion of the playthrough, the Stardust Dragon. All that stands in their path now is the remaining pillars and the Moonlord. Thankfully, to the immense power of the Stardust Dragon, Moonlord actually ends up being a cakewalk for the summoner player, which marks their first summoner playthrough being complete. Having just finished their first summoner playthrough, the summoner main is itching to start another. After checking the wiki, they see there are many weapons and accessories they didn't end up using in their playthrough, simply because obtaining them is out of the main game's progression or from random side quests. I mean, seriously, who fishes during a blood moon expecting to spawn a mini-boss that drops a summoner weapon? They might look up guides or videos about summoner and learn more niche mechanics such as minion immunity frames or whip stacking. In case you haven't heard of whip stacking, here's a brief explanation. The summoner main may also want to test their skills with these new mechanics through difficult challenges, such as Daytime Empress of Light. After switching to menacing reforges and many deaths, they obtain the Terra Prisma, truly marking the end of what vanilla Terraria has to challenge the summoner main. With that ticked off, they're locked into summoner for good. A truly impressive achievement that melee players could never think of achieving. Still craving a more difficult challenge, the summoner main turns to the workshop for challenging mods. The only thing the summoner is focused on now are hurdles. Bosses, challenge runs, you name it. If it's hard, they're hungry for it. They've also memorized practically everything on Terraria's wiki, able to min-max any build, exploit niche mechanics, and become the ultimate no-hitting glass cannon. As such, they've installed many quality of life mods so they can get to bosses ASAP and skip the boring parts of the game, like building, exploring, or grinding for items. Why waste your time building NPC houses when you can craft insta-houses? Or collecting materials when the operator has everything you could ever need? There might be a bit of bias creeping in, and maybe, just maybe, a bit of an ego. For summoner mains, some may never leave this stage, but for those that do, for those that truly master all that summoner class has to offer, and don't let their ego interfere, they become the summoner main begins to push the boundaries of what the summoning class is capable of. No hitting every boss, fully min-maxing their skills. No armor, no accessories, no problem. Despite surpassing these difficult challenges, the summoner main does not feel as accomplished as they thought they would. Instead, with each passing playthrough, they set their sights higher, seeking an even greater and more difficult challenge to test their skills every time. What used to be more of a gimmicky class has turned into the ultimate killing machine. The summoner main now keeps a checklist of combat challenges, with each accomplishment eclipsing the other. However, at some point the summoner main will run out of challenge runs to do. And then there's a crossroads. Either move on to a new game to conquer, or perhaps start a new journey altogether within Terraria. Having remembered that other people play Terraria and have fun without tryharding, the Summoner main has a weight removed from their shoulders. With this, they find more in Terraria than they thought they ever could. The Summoner main begins to learn everything they had avoided while focusing on Summoner, and starts to take their playthroughs a little more slowly. They might pick up other aspects of the game, such as building, wiring, and everyone's favorite, fishing. But most importantly, the Summoner main is reminded of the simple fun Terraria can offer outside of combat. They may teach new players how to get started in Terraria, start a multiplayer world with their friends, or pass on their wisdom of the Summoner class to others in comment sections, just without an ego involved this time. At the 10th stage, the Summoner main is truly content. Having learnt just about everything there is to learn, becoming a master in most mechanics, and passing on their knowledge, their journey will never truly end. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more of these 10 stages videos, please subscribe, and maybe join the Discord too. Thank you though, bye bye.